Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something truly fascinating, a visual documentary analysis that asks a pretty fundamental question. What does it actually take to be an effective, fully equipped teacher in the year 2025? To answer that, we're going to examine the very real professional evolution arc of a dedicated educator named Rodrigo Navarro da Silva, and we'll do this by looking directly at his 2025 academic portfolio from the Federal Institute of Espírito Santo. So, let's jump right in.
So, think about this for a second. What could you actually pull off with 350 free hours? You could probably learn a decent amount of a new language, or, I don't know, maybe even build a small boat. But for our subject, Rodrigo, 350 hours represents the exact amount of time he dedicated to continuous upskilling in just one single semester. And remember, this wasn't his full-time job. This was a staggering commitment to continuing education right on top of his existing full-time responsibilities as a teacher and a master's student. It's wild.
To keep things moving and map out the macro trends in modern education, we've structured this explainer into 5 thematic sections: the educator's journey, the digital school revolution, inclusion and active learning, projects and cultural management, and finally, the value of formation. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The educator's journey, from the periphery to lifelong learning.
You really have to understand where someone comes from to get why they do what they do. Born in 1987 in Itaim Paulista, a neighborhood right on the periphery of São Paulo's East Zone, Rodrigo developed this profound connection to books and school from a very young age. By 2005, when he was just about 17 years old, 2 massive milestones hit. He wrote his first book, Marcos de Passado, and he officially kicked off his teaching career. Fast forward to 2020, he graduates in pedagogy, and by 2025, he's a master's student with 17 completed books in the editing process, all while working as a public school teacher for the state of São Paulo. It's this incredible dual path of being a prolific writer and a dedicated public servant.
All right, Section 2, the digital school revolution, equipping for the modern classroom. Look at how he's building his modern toolkit. It's like stacking building blocks, really. On the foundational side, he spent 10 hours mastering Google Classroom for everyday class management and grading. Then, he scales way up, putting in 60 hours focused on advanced pedagogical mediation in virtual environments like Moodle. But the top tier is what truly stands out to me: another 60 hours dedicated purely to artificial intelligence and scientific literacy. And that AI syllabus? It goes way, way beyond just basic prompt engineering or learning how to chat with a bot. I mean, we are talking about incredibly complex, timely ideas here. He studied AI and democratic management, looking at how AI can actually expand participation. He explored ethical inclusion and scientific literacy for a shared future with AI, using a science, technology, society, and environment approach. It's all about deeply understanding the ethics of the tools that are literally shaping our students' futures.
But here's the kicker. He took all those high-level concepts and applied them directly to the context of vocational and technological high school education, committing yet another 60 hours. The focus here was entirely practical. How do we contextualize technology for in-person learning? How do we foster collaborative learning in daily school life? He looked at using learning objects and, most importantly, personalizing the teaching experience with technological support. Basically, it's about making the tech work for the student and not the other way around.
Which leads us to Section 3, Inclusion and Active Learning, Redefining Student Engagement.
Because let's face it, technology alone just isn't going to cut it anymore. To make sure students actually remain the protagonists in their own learning journey, Rodrigo dedicated 30 hours to a course entirely focused on active methodologies. Just look at this toolkit. He studied hybrid teaching, the flipped classroom model, where students explore the content at home first and then apply it in class, problem and project-based learning, peer instruction, and even educational gamification. He's literally learning how to capture attention in an era where everyone is constantly distracted.
But engaging students also means you have to understand them deeply. So part of this involved a 30-hour course on neurodiversity and autism. The syllabus highlighted a really profound, modern ideological shift in education, moving away from viewing autism purely through a traditional medical deficit lens, always focusing on what a student supposedly lacks, and instead wholly embracing the neurodiversity movement. It's about respecting the different ways the human brain naturally operates and processes information.
He even drilled down into super specific, highly modern awareness points.
For instance, he specifically studied the often overlooked invisibility of autism in women. I mean, that is granular, updated knowledge. And honestly, it's exactly what separates a run-of-the-mill classroom from a truly inclusive one, where every single student actually feels seen and supported.
Moving right along to Section 4, Projects and Cultural Management, managing education beyond the classroom.
So remember his extensive writing background we talked about? Well, merging that with his newly refined digital skills, Rodrigo actually took a 20-hour deep dive into audiobook production, and it was incredibly practical, following exact steps. Starting with pre-production like prepping equipment and the text itself, then moving into the actual production phase with narration and editing in software like Audacity, and finally, post-production and publishing the audio. He's actively learning how to distribute knowledge in the exact formats that today's learners actually want to consume.
But here's the thing. Creativity needs structure to actually survive. So he backed up those creative endeavors with some intense, almost corporate-level hard skills. Across 2 different courses totaling 80 hours, he studied rigorous project management. We're talking about the Project Management Institute frameworks, literally the gold standard in the corporate world. He analyzed project life cycles, mastered scope, time, and cost management, and learned the logistics for running school events, event marketing, and volunteer management. He's equipping himself to take these large-scale educational and cultural visions and bring them to life seamlessly.
And finally, Section 5, the value of formation, the philosophy behind the hours.
This is where we get to the big why. Why does a veteran teacher with almost 2 decades of experience still pursue this rigorous, exhausting level of continuing education? Well, this quote right from the final considerations of his portfolio beautifully summarizes his whole ethos. It says, "The commitment to lifelong learning is inseparable from the commitment to quality public education." He doesn't view these 350 hours just as a personal pat on the back. It is a direct, non-negotiable investment in his students. For Rodrigo, staying updated with AI, with active methodologies and inclusive practices, that is what high-quality public education actually looks like in the real world.
This remarkable professional evolution arc of Rodrigo Navarro da Silva leaves us with a profound blueprint for the modern educator. It proves that excellence isn't just some destination you arrive at, it is an active, ongoing pursuit. So I'll leave you with this one provocative question to chew on, no matter what your own career might be. How are you updating your practice today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.